All right, welcome back. Nice to see you. Good to be seen. I often say that. I don't really mean it, to be honest with you. I often say it's nice to be here. Sometimes it isn't. And it's often like it's nice to be seen and good to see you. It is good to see you, even though I can't. So that's also lie number 2 in the first statement I made of the day. Lie number 3, good to be seen. I really don't care if I'm seen. Anyway, nice to be here. For the most part, my name is Dean. Welcome to the program. As always, brought to you by our friends over at Cantork and Gitch, which you can get at Ed's Fine Imports. And we're here today on a beautiful Wednesday. No Lachlan Cross today because he's getting ready for vacation. And what I like to do, and I think we're going to make it a regular thing. We've been talking about making it a regular thing. What I like to do is live in the aura of other incredibly successful people, much more successful than mine. And who better to bring in for a podcast today when the world exploded this weekend here in this beautiful country of ours, Canada, than the #1 news podcast in this country and one of the biggest podcasts in Canada and North America right now. Please welcome to the program, Mr. Charles Adler, ladies and gentlemen, from the Charles Adler Show. Nice to see you, sir.
So what part of the country have you identified as a safe riding for a guy who tells 3 lies in 11 seconds?
None. That was pretty good, though. It was like a hot record for me. I was like,
no, you're
nice to be here. Good to be
you're
seen.
on the
I'm
way.
like,
You're on the way somewhere. There was a time. I'm entitled to talk that way because I'm over 50.
Yeah.
There was a time.
That's right. Me
when
too.
Roy
That's right.
Rogers and Dale Evans. No,
Yeah.
there was a time when the C word. I'm talking about credibility, not the other
Yeah.
one.
Mhm.
When credibility really mattered, but now you can just tell 3 lies in less than 11 seconds on
Right off the top.
one of the most viewed podcasts, and it's just funny. The host is laughing, your followers are laughing. I'm laughing. Oh yeah, he told 3 lies in 11 seconds. Not a problem.
Yeah, but
No
one was injured.
Cronkite. Right?
Yeah.
Walter Cronkite was the most trusted guy in the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go, Walter who?
Yeah.
Walt Disney. No, Walter Cronkite. And that was a time when if you even told a thin line and it was discovered, the PR department would come out, the apologies would come out, the billboards would come out, a priest would come at you with a Louisville Slugger. I mean, it was all over. But now 3 lies in 11 seconds, chopped liver, no big deal.
Yeah, but dude, I think I set a record. And here's the thing: no one was injured in any of those lies. And the only lies I told is that it's awesome to be seen. That was the biggest lie. Like, when someone's like, "Oh, it's nice to be seen. Good to see you. Nice to be seen." It's like
I think you do like being seen. I don't think it was a lie at all. I think
so,
you want. Yeah, I think you
it's
want to
all
be seen.
ego.
I think you want to be heard. I think you want people to write about you.
Yeah.
I know you're ready to roll out all your stuff about stoicism and all that, whatever whatever you want to believe, but being stoic and humble and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You still want to be famous.
Do you think so?
I'm whispering now.
You think I've got the fame bug?
Joe Biden wants to make a point. He whispers, "I want to be famous."
Well, I don't know if I have that in me. I used to be that guy. Like when we first started in radio, right? You're 26, 27 years old. Someone gives you a bunch of money, move to Toronto. You're like, I want to be the biggest this. I want to be the most important that. And at the end, so like 25, 26, 27, you get these delusions of grandeur.
Yeah.
And then you do it, right? Then you do it. You've got, and in your case, the biggest national talk show, maybe in Canadian history. We were pretty good at what we did for about 15 years. And, so it's like, you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is great. Now everybody's staring at me and I can't do anything wrong. That's the benefit of not being well known, right? The benefit of not being well known in our case, and I mean, it's relative as to where we're well known. I mean, if you left the country, people go, oh, there's Charles Adler. He's a famous news commenter, presenter. He's on Fox. Like, people know who you are. You won an Emmy. I get it. You're famous. You're awesome at what you do. You're the gold standard. But when it comes to someone like me, you walk around and it's just like, it's one of two things they say. It's like, what are you doing now? Which is incredibly humbling for a lot of people that don't have the internet. What are you doing?
Dean, I've got some good news for you. Okay?
Yeah, what's that?
I've got really good sources. I got 3 sources. The old journalism. You have 3 sources. I have 3 sources.
Yeah, okay.
You are not irrelevant.
Okay,
you are not irrelevant. So don't talk as if you are, because because you're not.
No, and here's the thing is I don't believe I am because I see the metrics, so I know where we are. I know
yeah,
that people listen
I
to our
see the
podcasts,
numbers.
they go to the Crier Media, all this other stuff.
Every
Sure,
hour, man. Every
yeah.
every hour, I look at those. I look at those Gene Blundell numbers, and I go, "Holy shit! Why does my buddy think he's irrelevant? He's hot."
Yeah, we're hot. You've got the number one podcast. I've apparently got numbers that I don't like talking about. But here's the thing. I don't care about any of those things anymore, which is fascinating to me. Like, I like it. I like the panache. Like, I like that I'm more proud of the fact that you're number one in the country and I get to work with you and you're part of Crier Media. Like, that's the thing that I'm really excited about.
You are such a generous Christian man.
Right.
Chuck, I'm more happy for you than I am for myself. Sure.
It's true.
Okay.
It's true because it's like we're number one and I didn't have to do anything. That's the best.
Well, you had to cut the deal with me.
Yeah, that was easy though because you and I are like-minded. Anyway, nice to see you. It's Wednesday. Stampede started this weekend. Charles Adler joins me from the Charles Adler podcast. Go and download, subscribe. It's one of the biggest podcasts in Canada, if not the biggest news podcast in Canada right now, numero uno. And what we like to do is we kind of like to spin through what we saw, but we take a bit of a human perspective to it. So this weekend, Pierre Poilievre, Justin Trudeau, they took turns going to the Calgary Stampede, endearing themselves to whoever wanted to flip a pancake or shake their hand or listen to them spew rhetoric. And really everything, the makeup on the shirt and all the craziness was all clouded by a couple of pictures. Was it not this weekend? These two pictures that I found very interesting.
There you go.
Where a gentleman named Eric showed up to take pictures with Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith. Pierre running for prime minister, the head of the Conservative Party, Danielle Smith, the premier, and the head of the radical UCP party, super conservative weirdos in Alberta. But the gentleman is wearing a shirt that says, "Thank a straight person today for your existence, straight pride," and then the two bathroom signals, which is really just mocking people, gay people. And it's also incredibly incorrect because gay people can absolutely procreate like all of them, like everybody else. The narrative that came out of that, Chuck, was from both of those people. Hey, listen, we take millions of pictures, and it's the same narrative that shows up every time they take a picture with someone from Diagolon or someone from an extremist organization or Adam Waffen or whatever the situation. It's like, we just take a lot of pictures. But in your world, and you understand risk mitigation in the political arena, you did this for a living for a long time. And we'll get to this another day. You know these people. You helped create this back in your original inception. But
I got blood on my hands. Okay,
yeah,
okay. I know Danielle. I know Pierre. I know this crowd. These were my roommates. Okay, for all intents and purposes, ideological roommates for a long time. Yeah, I know them.
Well, explain it to me because there's only two conversations around this. One is they didn't know, and the other one is that is the most deliberate dog whistle we have ever seen. So where does it sit?
Yeah, they can't not know because the green T-shirt and the big bold letters, and as I've said before, you've got to be, I don't know, a real moron or real drunk, and whatever people want to say about my people I thought of as my friends, my allies, whatever. Poilievre and Smith, they're not stupid. They're not morons. They're not drunk. This is very, very deliberate. You can't miss the message there, and they know when they see that message, it's the base. That's how the lights get switched on in their brains. It's the base, and if they get pictures taken that the base likes, then that glues them to the base. And if somebody has a problem with it, from national media or whatever, you just put out a press release saying, I don't support the message. I support people who come and want to take pictures with me, but I'm not supporting the message on the shirt, or I'm offended by the message on the shirt. Look, the thing is that their objective every day, okay, is to get clicks, to get attention. And their objective every day is to do what's known as owning the libs. It's a statement that's come out of the American right wing, but it's also used by the Canadian right wing. So owning the libs simply means triggering as many people who aren't like them, triggering as many people to the left of them as possible. And their base loves to see that. Their base loves to see people who are what we think of as just normal Canadians getting angry because their base thinks that if the other team is angry, it's because the other team is afraid of them. Oh my God, I'm so afraid that Pierre Poilievre will be PM. And when I see him posing with this person, and I see many people who are of like mind on the other side, that scares me. Here's the news. I mean, that I think we have to deliver on this platform and some others. It doesn't affect our lives at all. Dean, I don't mean to speak for you here, but I'm going to speak for you anyway.
Go ahead.
You and I have done not too badly in this business, regardless of whether liberals or conservatives were running Alberta, Ontario, BC, Canada, whatever. You and I don't think have ever gotten out of bed in the morning and asked ourselves, I hope the PCs are doing better today, or I hope the liberals are doing better today, because my paycheck depends on it. My pay, whether it's in the States or Canada, all parts of Canada, all parts of the States, has never depended on whether Republicans were in power or Democrats, liberals, conservatives, in some provinces, NDP. Doesn't mean squat to my ability to make a living, to my ability to interpret what's going on in the world, specifically in the news, popularizing the news, as they say, explaining it without sounding like some talking head lobbyist on one of those shows that nobody watches. That's not how I talk. That's not how I think. That's not how I feel. And so on a pure professional level, it doesn't matter beans to me whether Pierre Poilievre is prime minister or Justin Trudeau is prime minister. Like less than nothing, meaningless. I could make the case that if a Pierre Poilievre is prime minister, it actually creates more business for me, because more people will be interested in what I have to say in criticizing the prime minister. So I could make that case that it's in my business interest for Pierre Poilievre to become prime minister.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. There's trouble and chaos, and when it comes to content, and guys like us that like to farm some of it, right? Like you can look at the chaos that we see in the atmosphere that we're currently experiencing politically, and I can tell you that our analytics look much better when we're partaking in that mess. Like I can tell you that business is good. When we're taking that chaos and we're framing it for people in this space, this is nothing but great. Like when it comes to delivering content and talking to people, but this picture is not content to me. And I want to know how it works, because you have some context here that not a lot of people have because of the nature of the job that you did for the past, 30, 40 years. And you said you had blood on your hands, but you know these people. Danielle Smith, Pierre Poilievre, and the people that arranged or of, and the strategy behind how that picture was taken. Am I to understand, if I'm not mistaken, this is what I've heard, I just want to clarify it with you because
Yeah.
Am I to understand that is not like people just don't come up to the premier of the province and the wannabe prime minister of this country, but they don't just walk up to them with anything on it, just take pictures, and it's just willy-nilly.
No.
Like
It's foolish. I mean, they've all got security. They've all got people with them. And if security, then the so-called people with them, security, whatever you want to call it, if they're looking for weapons, if they're looking for people who are unstable because they might assault the premier, or they might assault the prime minister, regardless of how I feel about their political views, I want these people to be as safe as possible. And there's no way that either of them is absolutely alone. It may look that way in these relatively tight shots, but there are people there. So if somebody is noticing someone who's looking very unstable, or if someone is noticing someone that might be concealing a weapon, or if someone is noticing someone that is wearing a stupid homophobic T-shirt, it ain't going to happen unless the team wants it to happen. On the case of Poilievre, he posed with the guy with the T-shirt about 3 hours after Danielle Smith posed with him. And of course, the people around Poilievre are on their phones all the time, checking social media. And so this was all over social media that Danielle Smith had done this, and would she apologize? How does she really feel about this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was going viral, certainly in Alberta and some other parts of the country. But the point is that Poilievre's people saw all of that. And that's when this guy was welcomed into an area there behind the hay bales at the Stampede. and introduced to Polyev and then posed with him. This is the idea that they didn't know who he was, they didn't know what he was wearing, they didn't know what this was about. Pierre Polyev didn't know what. I mean, it's just, there are lies and there are damn lies, and this is a damn stupid lie.
Jesus. So they tested the waters with a picture with Marlena, otherwise known as Danielle. They test the pictures. They test the waters with her and that gentleman wearing this straight pride T-shirt, which really isn't. It's not about being proud that you're straight. In my estimation, it's legitimately mocking gay people. It's legitimately mocking the marginalization of an entire community. It's legitimately saying that I don't give a crap about anybody who's gay. And you've got the premier of the province taking a picture of him, and then 3 hours later they see the analytics. The team, you're suggesting the team sees the analytics, and they're like, hey, get this guy back into the secure area where the would-be wannabe prime minister Pierre Polyev is, so we can get a picture with him and this guy with this shirt. And he's even got a new hat and some nice new sunglasses on for that picture too. So this is a work, is what you're saying. This is like this is just a hey,
it's a job. I mean, they're getting free publicity, right? They're not paying for it, so it's absolutely free, and they're guaranteed a lot of social media bang, which is what they're after. I mean, many of these guys don't care if they get on CBC and CTV and the others, because from their perspective, social media is going to drive it. It drives their numbers. It drives dollars. And from their point of view, it's going to drive their votes. It's going to help the get out the vote effort, etc. Social media is a big deal.
Donations. Hey, help us fight woke Canada, right? Help us fight this woke government. Help us fight everybody that wants us to jam that flag down our throats. Help us fight. Is that what that is? Like a little silent little hey?
Yeah, but I can't blame them for taking social media more seriously than conventional media. So do we. Yeah. I mean, do we ever have discussions about advertising on conventional media? I mean, we do our stuff on social media. That's what's working for us. That's what's working for everybody, because that's where the eyeballs are.
Well, it's where they leave the crazy too. Like, I don't know if you saw the actual clip of Mr. Polyev delivering a speech at the Stampede. And the two things that he really keyed on were the World Economic Forum never being a part of Canadian politics, and the other one was digital IDs. He'll never allow digital IDs. And it was the same day Alberta launched their digital ID health card, telling everybody to get digital identification. And I'm not kidding you. It's called the Alberta card. But anyway, I digress because he's an idiot. What do you make of the intentionality of this move? Right? What do you make of the intentionality of it? And I know you've kind of sussed out the fact that really the conservatives and conservative leaning politicians, specifically really hard right, they don't care about negative publicity anymore. When did that change? And what is the strategy? And do you know of that being a strategy?
It changed with Trump. It changed with Trump and Bannon. Steve Bannon, people say he's crazy. He's crazy. He's crazy like a fox. Right now, Steve Bannon he's also facing charges. He got pardoned. He got pardoned on his last conviction by Trump, but now he's facing some other charges. But in any case, and Steve Bannon, just so everyone knows, Steve Bannon also has one of the most successful podcasts in the United States. He's got a lot of people who are paying attention to him. And one of the things that Steve Bannon is doing with some right-wing sugar daddies, in other words, people with money who like to give to the various Republican causes and Republican political action committees. Remember, in the States, there's no limits. You can give as much as you want. So right now, they're raising money to Steve Bannon used to call it flooding the zone, meaning he wanted Donald Trump to say crazy stuff 24/7, lots of stuff, more stuff. And he believed that the more stuff he put out there, the more normalized crazy would be. It would be very, very hard for the media to digest everything, analyze everything, and at some point it would just become normal, which is, of course, what has happened. So that was the flood the zone communication strategy under Donald Trump. And now Steve Bannon wants to flood the ballot. They're not calling it that officially. I'm calling it that. They want to flood the 2024 presidential ballot with 2 or 3 or 4 people that can pick off Democratic votes. And one of them will be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Technically, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running in the Democratic primary, but all of that is about just gaining as much publicity for him as possible. He will lose the Democratic primary to Joe Biden. And then once he loses, what Steve Bannon and his sugar daddies on the right want to happen is for Robert F. Kennedy to run as an independent. And they feel that even if he picks off 1% or 2%, it could mean the difference in the outcome. Ralph Nader was on the ballot in Florida a number of years ago, and it was Al Gore versus Bush. And Ralph Nader being on the ballot in Florida made all the difference in the world. If Ralph Nader had not run, I think at that time he ran for the Green Party. If Ralph Nader had not been a candidate, there's no doubt that Al Gore would have defeated George W. Bush. So now they want 1 or 2% of the people who are generally Democratic voters to see that name Kennedy on the ballot, Robert F. Kennedy. And if they're not crazy about Biden, vote for him. And they're also trying to get 2 or 3 other people who could hive off some Democratic votes. If they can do that, Donald Trump can become president again.
It's crazy. That's
Right, but this is, but you know, I pay attention to this stuff because it's the business that I pay attention to. But I can tell you that the Danielle Smiths and the Pierre Poilievres and the crews around them, they pay attention to exactly
what's going on.
The same stuff.
Copy and paste, right? Like it just seems like copy and paste the way that we've seen the craziness from the States, where we've all shook our heads politically and gone, "What are you fucking doing? Pardon my language. What are you doing?" And then you see it happening all the time.
That's the world they live in, and you got to understand that beyond just the politics of this, it's also the excitement level, the mainstream Canadian news world, and how mainstream news is discussed, even on some podcasts, is just really, really boring when you're part of the Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith orbit. You know, it's mainly younger guys who are doing a lot of this. You know, the digital work and the other work. And younger guys are just not interested in that boring public policy, blah, 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 you know, that is done in a lot of mainstream media. I mean, even though, you know, they think that they're hot because they've got the right people with the right credentials, you know, the right lobbyists, the right PhDs and whatever. But to a lot of guys under the age of 40, it's just boring.
Do you not? So part of it is like we get really frustrated as Canadians because of the atmosphere and the political ecosystem that we live in, where it's like, you know, culture and ideological, and it's a culture war. It's really all it is, and we're stuck in the middle, and they're trying to militarize us, manipulate us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for the longest time, I would watch news coming out of the States, and I'd be like this: why can't we be more exciting about politics? They turn it into show business down there. Now it's show business, and we're all like, whoa, right? But you know, is it show business when you're veering into hate speech? Like that's my question.
But it drives the clicks, and I got to tell you that the other side, the people who don't want this to happen, are just really, for the most part, boring. You know, they scold, you know, long scolds, no humor. And I would just advise people who are strongly opposed to this stuff. Cut the sanctimony, cut the righteousness, get right to the point. That's why I did the tweet I did yesterday. You want to hate on gay men? Think of me as a gay man. You want to hate on Muslims? Think of me as Muslim. You want to hate on Justin Trudeau? Think of me as Trudeau. You know, you want to hate on women? Think of me as a woman. Just, you know, it got a lot of attention on social media. It continues to get attention. It's kind of viral. But one of the reasons it's that way is it gets right to the point, rather than making a speech about the T-shirt. It's a stupid T-shirt, and anyone who tries to make the point that people who are gay and lesbian, you know, before they came out, didn't have you know, partners who were straight partners is crazy. There are a lot of kids in this country whose moms and dads are gay men or lesbian women. That's been going on like forever. So the T-shirt is stupid. It's just stupid. Now I can go into a long lecture about what this kind of message does to different people in different parts of the country, and I could go on and on and on and on and on. But I just don't think that is the way to fight. You know, they're doing a bare-knuckled thing. And if you want to fight them, you've also got to get bare-knuckled. you can't get too PhD-ish because with all due respect to people who have PhDs, you can't win this war. It is a culture war, and you cannot defeat them by being overly sophisticated.
Yeah, it's not a problem that the people on the hard right have being overly sophisticated, by the way. This is the tweet you're talking about. And you put it out yesterday, and I thought it was beautiful. If you, it was in response to someone because you had mentioned that Pierre Poilievre knew exactly what he was doing, and everybody seems to think that not liking gay people is an acceptable way to live and act. That's what they consider an alternative. So you respond, they respond to you. How about you, Charles? You gay or straight? Are you ashamed of being straight? Sounds like you may be. Maybe you should switch teams, then you'd be really politically correct. That's what it is for these guys. It's about clout and trolling. That's it. People's sexuality and people's nightmare, whether they live it or not, is a side note to these people, and I'll get to that in a second. And you respond, if you hate gay men, think of me as one. If you hate Muslims, think of me as Muslim. If you hate Trudeau, think of me the way you do with the PM. If you hate women, hate me. I play for the human team, sir, and I support human rights. Too liberal? Then think of me as a liberal. Then you end with a little French. Bonsoir. I thought that was a really classy touch, by the way. Bonsoir.
I guarantee you the bonsoir ticked them off more than anything. Because another thing they're against. They're against 30% of the people in the country. They always wondered, the conservatives always wondered, the conservative base, why can't we do better in Quebec? Because they're not stupid. They're just people in Quebec, whatever you may think of their politics, they know when you're looking down on them, they know that you're hating on them, and so the best message I can give to the homophobe is bonsoir.
Bonsoir, ladies and gentlemen. Is it a because I think that one of the things that I saw was in response to Pierre's terrible weekend at the Stampede, where he just acted like a fool and dressed like a fool and tried to pretend he wasn't what he was and tried to curate this different look. And he got mocked for it, like we mock politicians, like we mock other people, like we commentary. We do commentary when it comes to people like him in politics in the public eye. And it didn't matter if you weren't taking a strip off him for his clearly homophobic picture. It didn't matter what the comment was. It could have been Tom Cruise wants his Top Gun sunglasses back. Could have been one of those, right? And invariably, the trolls, which are bought and paid for by Canada Proud, by the way, that much I know because I know the people they employ. We know them. The trolls came out, as did generalized Canadians, and they came out traditionally with like one of the things that is like it's the only arrow in their quiver, and it's the blackface pictures that Justin Trudeau that are floating around, and it was incessant. And this weekend, I made a point of telling people, listen, if you're going to weaponize these blackface pictures, I think you need to understand something. You're racist because if it's as offensive as they say it is, Charles, this is only my opinion. If they're as offended by that racism, and it was racist, if they're as offended by it as they say they are, would they not further that narrative? Would they go, you know what? I'm offended by this. I could see how a man or woman of color would be offended by me militarizing this picture for my own enjoyment. So I'm not going to put it out. And listen, no point did I say those pictures weren't highly offensive and a terrible fucking moment in time, pardon my language, for Justin Trudeau. Like that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the incessant use of it in response to literally anything that someone from that side of the equation doesn't like. It is highly racist, and it's amazing because these people, they're so incredibly offended. You would think that they would be too offended to use it as a prank online for clout.
I have never met a real homophobe, like a genuine. I'm not talking about the people who are trying to get a rise out of people by telling a stupid joke that's exploitive of gay people. I'm talking about the real haters. Okay, so I've never met one of them that just sees gays behind every conspiracy, gays behind every rock. They're just driven crazy by it. They can't stop talking about it. All of their imagery is always sexual imagery. So that kind of person, like some of the people on Twitter right now, and some of the ones who I was responding to. So the chronic homophobe.
Yeah.
I have never met one of those people who wasn't also racist, who wasn't also misogynistic. People who are haters, their hatred isn't targeted. Okay, it's not sophisticated. They just hate. They hate all minorities. They hate all people who don't look like them and don't act like them, and that's the way it is. So when some of these people who want to hate on LGBT people, okay,
Yeah.
they want to hate on LGBT and then claim that they're offended by Trudeau's blackface. I mean, sorry, that's about as credible as Pierre Poilievre's people saying that Pierre didn't see the message on the T-shirt. It just isn't. And everyone knows this in real life because everyone's got haters in the family or among their friends. People get stuck in this hate gear, and everyone knows that people who hate one group hate all groups.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it? A quick side note. You talk about groups that hate, and this is a hate group. It's a great point that you make. It doesn't matter where that hate is focused now. These people are just generally, they suffer from that affliction of just being totally miserable all the time. And so they project that misery. But when did the Conservative Party decide to pivot from fiscal conservatism to the ideology that they're embracing now, which is like, hey, anything goes? Because we as Canadians, I mean, we're getting uncomfortable with the idea that guy seems to be polling way ahead of the prime minister at the moment in time.
I think they were frustrated with how well the Liberals were doing. I think they were paying much more attention, if for no other reason than the Canadian news was boring for them, so they're watching American news. And and you got to remember that money is a big part of this. Woodward and Bernstein talked about following the money. You have to follow the money. When conservatives here in Canada saw conservatives in the United States raising huge chunks of money, in many cases from people who were nominally religious, okay, who were concerned about their two favorite issues, abortion and same-sex marriage, and were able to just raise gigantic amounts of money and also turn out their bases. When conservatives here saw that, they said, hey, the culture war is what we have to fight, not the economic war. Talking about economics, talking about budgets, talking about balanced budgets and lower deficits and lower debt, that may be interesting to 20 or 30% of the population, but we can get a much bigger chunk of the population talking about us, and many of them donating to us, if we do the culture wars. And the LGBT issue is very much part of the culture war. Earlier this week, we did a pod on, I just called it The Truth. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, but it's still the truth. And it was about Orban, the quasi, I'll use language that appeals to people who want to be on the correct side of everything. He's democratically elected, so he's not technically a dictator, but he acts like a dictator. And he's not technically a fascist, so he's often called an authoritarian because he's not the leader of a, quote, fascist party. But for the most part, to a lot of people, he comes across as a fascist dictator. And there is Stephen Harper standing beside him, supporting him, and saying that parties that are center-right parties like the Canadian Conservatives should be, as Harper put it, collaborating with the Viktor Orban government in Hungary. I couldn't believe I was looking at this, but that, the LGBT thing is a big part of the Orban success story. It was about a decade ago that Orban literally rewrote the Hungarian constitution to make sure that same-sex marriage was outlawed. And he talked about it extensively. He said that the Hungarian nation is about Christians, and he also meant to say white Christians, because he talked about how in other European countries there's a mixture of the races. He was talking specifically about Muslims and regular white Christians, and he said that those countries that are doing this are losing their nationhood. They're not really nations. And he talked about the Hungarian nation being a white Christian nation. And he felt that same-sex marriage was threatening the white Christian family, which is at the center of the white Christian nation. And it was just what most of us think of as fascism. But there's Stephen Harper standing beside him and saying to people like Pierre Poilievre, you got to do what this guy's doing. You got to collaborate with this guy. So I sort of called on Polyev to respond to this, to distance himself from it. Not that I thought he would. And of course, when I saw him happy, doing his smirk right beside a guy wearing the anti-LGBT T-shirt, it just told me that Pierre Poilievre was agreeing with Stephen Harper, that this is a good thing for Canadian conservatism. And I'll tell you this, the jury's out. As crazy as this may sound, Dean, some people may do the math and find out maybe it is something that works for Canadian conservatism. Maybe there is a crowd of people out there that is in the closet in terms of their anti-LGBT attitudes, and maybe they're rooting for Poilievre and the stupid guy in the T-shirt.
It's amazing to me how important this issue is for you because of your history with conservatism, Conservative Party. We mentioned it a couple of times briefly, but is this one of the major issues or major reasons you, as a communications professional, someone who was used wholly and his mind was used and picked by conservatives for a very long time when it comes to media and communications? And again, you say this colloquially, but you have blood on your hands, is how you put it. Is this issue or the ideology or that exclusivity or that seeming Christian nationalist sort of hatred for marginalized people, specifically the LGBT community, is that one of the things that turns you off or moves you away?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was a progressive conservative, so if you just sort of check off the boxes on issues like abortion, equal marriage, same-sex marriage, and I could go on, but in general, issues around human rights, I would be considered, certainly by all social conservatives, I would be considered a liberal. And I've been that ever since, ever since I was a teenager. I mean, I grew up a Montreal liberal. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, I voted for Pierre Trudeau. Pierre Trudeau was the MP in my riding, and I voted for him, and I voted for him enthusiastically. And then when I moved to Ontario, and I was very, very young, I was in my very early 20s when I moved to Ontario, I started voting for the Bill Davis Progressive Conservatives. And the progressive conservatives on social issues were on the same side that I was. And so there you go. So when it came to being part of the conservative movement in this country, yeah, I was all about smaller government, more efficient government. And I was all about doing as much as possible to stay away from the private sector. And one of the reasons I wanted the private sector to be as healthy as possible is because I wanted Canada to have a really strong social safety net. Mm-hmm. And I felt if you strangle the private sector, you're going to hurt the social safety net. If you allow the private sector to grow, they're going to throw off a lot of revenue, and some of that revenue can be used to do the kinds of things that we need to do to help people. So when conservatives listen to that message to them, talk about today's Poilievre conservatives, when they hear me say exactly what I've just said, they go, liberal, that's a liberal.
And they turn it into a pejorative.
As a pejorative, of course. I don't care what people like that call me, but I'm just saying that it's a totally different scene now. And so, people say that I left the conservatives. I mean, from my perspective, they left me because it was, for years and years, the Jim Flahertys of this world and the other people involved in conservatism, Peter Lougheed in Alberta, Bill Davis in Ontario, and I could go on to the more contemporary figures, the Joe Clarks, if you will, the Brian Mulrooney's. People like that never tried to get me to be anti-abortion, anti-gay. Jean Charest. I mean, that's not his deal. So yeah, I was very well connected with all of the conservatives. I was well connected with Stephen Harper as well, and I've got to tell you, Stephen Harper never tried to get me to be a social conservative. And Stephen Harper used to resent the social conservatives. He felt that they were getting in the way. So he would pay lip service to them, but he didn't particularly like them. And he certainly never tried to encourage me to be a social conservative. So all of this stuff you're seeing, this crazy stuff, when I say I have blood on my hands, I have blood on my hands because I helped these people when they were following a relatively progressive conservative path or even a libertarian path. But I never tried to help these people foment hate.
Right.
And now, I mean, look, they don't even call this stuff hate. I mean, Danielle Smith doesn't call this stuff hate. Pierre Poilievre doesn't call this stuff hate. This is just this is just the base.
It's an alternative opinion to them.
That's
how they coined it.
Having the freedom, the base having the freedom to say what they want to say and believe what they want to believe. So from their point of view, this is actually, just a libertarian perspective. Wear any t-shirt you want, say whatever you want. You're free, and we're gonna celebrate your freedom.
Yeah, it's amazing because it's if you ask, I saw a poll the other day. I think Frankie Graves put it out. He'll be on the show, I think, next month. But from Ecos, and the poll was actually fascinating. It was I think we talked about this, to liberals or people who are not conservative, do not hardline conservatives. The most important thing to them is healthcare, other people, right? It's the sustainability of healthcare and being able to afford a house, that kind of stuff. To conservatives, 68% was freedom. And again, it's unidentifiable. But they've had that
freedom for many of them means throwing rocks.
Yeah.
Freedom for them is, convoy freedom. F Trudeau, F doctors and scientists who want to make sure that we have vaccines.
Yeah.
F the LGBT community. I mean, that's what freedom is to many of them. That's what energizes them. And Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre don't want to get out of the way. That, as far as they're concerned, those are their people.
Oh yeah, dude, and it's amazing to me because not only can they not qualify it, they use it as this blanket statement, and I think you have to be a qualifiable moron to say, or quantifiable moron to go, you know what, the most important thing for me is freedom, and you're like, hey, what is that freedom? And they're like, freedom to be an a-hole. Actually, that's it's just an alternative opinion. Freedom to hate anybody I want. Is that a legitimate thing? Because listen, one of the things, and I don't like it, and it's not a sign of a progressive society at all, when you leave space for people who are like, oh, those are just the hateful dicks, and they're just going to walk around hating people. But we're built on a society where hate is also covered under freedom of speech, but it's not, right? This is hate. This isn't just hate speech. This is an ideology trying to justify hate speech as an alternative opinion, and it continually comes from, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, continually comes from the religious right. It's this idea that, and Christian nationalism, which it all of this stuff lines up behind. To me, it's and I don't know what comes first in these situations. Where do we have a bunch of holy warriors, or do we have people who are hiding behind religion as a way to push their?
Most of these guys aren't. They're not religious.
No,
They're not spending their Sundays in church. They're not reading the Bible. There's the term Christian nationalism appeals to them because, I don't know, it gives them some sort of I don't know. It makes it sound more sophisticated, sacred. Yeah. I mean, Orban, the guy I was talking about, the
but
guy
that anti-gay thing, the anti-gay ideology, they literally, a lot of them take it out of the Bible, the good book, which is
they're using the Bible. I mean, I just, Dean, as I've said before with many issues, my problem is I know this stuff because I know the people, and most people I've met in the conservative movement who want to hate on LGBT people aren't the least bit religious. And you're suppressing the F-bombs, doing what you're doing professionally. These people in private cannot suppress the F-bombs. They're just all the time. Sure. No, they're not. They're not really. I'm not saying that some religious people
saying they're using it
with hate. I'm talking about the major people, the major players.
Yeah.
Steve Bannon. I mean, Steve Bannon can't breathe without uttering the F-bomb. And Steve Bannon doesn't go to church. Donald Trump doesn't go to church. Remember when Donald Trump was doing his thing with the Bible? I can't remember what it was, but he had a Bible in his hand and he was holding the Bible.
Oh, when they were clearing the square in front of the White House, remember that, where they started?
He was holding the Bible like it was like a dead fish. I mean, he wasn't inspired. He wasn't moved by the Bible. He wasn't cradling that Bible. He wasn't doing a Billy Graham number on the Bible. It was my God. I mean,
but what's wild is that they're the people that eat that up. There are people out there that look at, because you and I both know that politics uses religion as a cudgel, right? Like
Yeah.
you and I both know, as a vehicle. It's just a clown car for idiocy. That's what it is, and that's my opinion. And then you see the like all politicians, and it happened at the Stampede where they all get dressed up in cowboys. I'm like, you're not a
Yeah.
cowboy. They all get dressed up in like stuff to go to a Hindu temple. I'm like, hey, listen, you wouldn't do that on a Thursday, it's stuff like that. But there's this idea out there that you got to be all things to all people. But I've seen this amazing change in the idea that, hey, that's not just PR. That's an opportunity to radicalize other people who may or may not share the same tenets of the things that we believe as a people that might lead us to the promised land when it comes to getting elected.
It's all about getting elected. It's all about getting the base energized, and it's all about getting money out of them.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if money had nothing to do with politics, 90% of what we're talking about, we wouldn't be talking about. Always follow the money.
Okay. Well, there you go, dude. It's been enlightening to talk to you about this. It's funny because you watch everybody try and justify it. Twitter doesn't do justice to it. You need context, and having Charles Adler, the #1 podcaster in Canada, break it down for us from a place that he used to be deeply involved in, and now he's deeply turned off by.
I'm an apostate.
Awesome.
To use religious language, I am an apostate. That's how I'm seen. And I'm proud, I'm proud to be an apostate from that. I was never at home with the hate, and I never will be. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. Yeah. And if they want to run their vehicle on hate, I hope, fingers crossed, thoughts and prayers, as religious people like to say, thoughts and prayers that the good guys can beat them.
Yeah, they will. Thanks, Charles. Charles Adler, ladies and gentlemen, the Charles Adler Podcast, Charles Adler Show. Anywhere you get your fine podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. You can also go to YouTube. Crier.co is where you can get everything that Charles Adler is and does and says, including his Twitter handle at Charles Adler. So go and follow him today. You have a lovely day in Winnipeg, sir. What's the weather like? How are we doing today? Is it too hot, too cold? Grasshoppers? Mosquitoes.
Looking out onto my ocean view in Winnipeg is a Walmart. Okay, my convenience store. The sun has risen, and the sky is relatively blue. There's not too much smoke coming from any fires. It's a beautiful day on the prairie.
All right.
I love living in my little house on the prairie. People say, you can live anywhere in the world. What are you doing there? I just want to live in a Walmart parking lot. That's what I've dreamed of all my life. And because of the success that Americans and Canadians have afforded me, I can now live in the parking lot of my choice.
The home of your dreams, right in a Walmart parking lot. Charles Adler, ladies and gentlemen, good to see you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
All right, man. Charles Adler, the Charles Adler Podcast, Charles Adler Show, anywhere you get your fine podcasts. That gentleman is #1 in the country, which is incredible to me because he launched it like last week, right? I guess that's what happens when the world is void of accountable voices in media. You insert one, he inserts himself, and everybody's like, that's delicious water. I would like some more of that, please. I'm no longer mentally dehydrated. Someone's here to make sense of things going on. That's the beauty of Charles Adler. That's the beauty of accountable content. None of the things we talked about are far out conspiracy theories. We have pictures of them. And that gentleman knows where all the bodies are. And he's way too kind about it, too. Right? It's kind of how I know where all the bodies are in Christian nationalism, because I grew up in it. And it's a great word, apostate. I love that word. I love it. Where you've read the Bible back to front, Pentateuch, New Testament, the Gospels, Old Testament, took a rip through Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and you know exactly what the whole deal is there. It's just about making you scared to death so you can believe in a sky daddy so that they can hate on the things that they hate on and they can kettle the world in their Christian nationalism. No, No, read. When you read, you get smarter. It's kind of the whole thing. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks to Charles Adler for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to download and sub his podcast wherever you get your fine podcasts. And special thank you to our friends at Cantork. Colin Livingston, he's in town this weekend for the Honda Indy. He's going to be kart racing. He's part of the Tagliani Pinty's NASCAR team as well. And he also owns Canada's assembly tool experts, Can Torque, making rugged, hardworking, beautiful torque wrenches, leading industrial tool experts, offering you the very best in sales service. Torque wrenches, what are they? Great question. Loosening and fastening solutions. Sometimes you can't get one big enough. Sometimes you can't get one that goes into a tight little spot, specifically in heavy machinery, the steel industry, forestry, railroad, nuclear industry. Listen, if you own something that needs a bolting solution, loosening or fastening, and you need a torque wrench and you can't buy it, these are the best guys in the world. Canadian made, Canadian operated, Canadian manufactured. Everything is from Canada, so you can be proud that you're doing business with them. They do business all over the world. Go to cantorque.com today. And Gitch, brought to you by luxury boxer brief brand Gitch, in for any level of performance as well as everyday life. Buy 3 and get 1 free with promo code Gitch3. Just log on to edsfineimports.com and you can get a black pair, purple pair, red pair, orange pair. It doesn't matter. They're very soft, barely their comfort. And listen, the best underwear you'll ever buy. It's a very serious personal thing when you're buying underpants. And I know this because I'm very specific about my underwear, and this is my brand. It'll be your brand too, and you can get a free pair. If you order 3 or more when you check out, use promo code GITCH and then the number 3, edsfineimports.com. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Thanks to Charles Adler for joining us. We'll see you on Friday. Bye.